This is the new volunteer orientation for Volunteer Lawyers Network. This presentation will be a brief introduction to Volunteer Lawyers Network and will explain what the organization does, who the organization serves, and how you as a volunteer attorney or other legal volunteer may be able to help. This presentation was originally recorded in May of 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic and will be updated in response to further issuance of orders from the Minnesota Supreme Court regarding the reopening of the court and rescheduling of hearings in many of the case types that Volunteer Lawyers Network assists with. What is Volunteer Lawyers Network, commonly referred to as VLN? VLN is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was originally founded in 1966 by a group of attorneys affiliated with the Hennepin County Bar Association who identified unmet legal needs within their local community. VLN was originally called Legal Advice Clinics. Today, VLN's mission is to protect and promote the basic human needs of people living in poverty through the power of legal volunteers. That includes not just volunteer attorneys, but also volunteer law students, volunteer paralegals, and many other volunteers in the legal profession. Importantly, VLN assists only with legal issues that have a venue in the state of Minnesota. So if you are a volunteer attorney seeking to provide legal advice through VLN, you will need to be admitted to the bar in the state of Minnesota. Additionally, VLN assists with some issues in federal court, predominantly bankruptcy, and you would obviously need to be admitted to the federal court as well if you were to volunteer in that area. What types of legal services does Volunteer Lawyers Network provide? VLN provides three types or three tiers of services to its low-income clients: advice, brief services, and full representation services. At present, VLN's legal advice services typically involve low-income clients being scheduled to receive a telephone call from a volunteer attorney to receive advice regarding a specific type of legal issue over the telephone. Volunteer Lawyers Network used to operate a variety of in-person clinics at courthouses in Hennepin County and at community partner locations throughout the Twin Cities metro area, but all of those in-person clinics have been closed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Brief services typically involves volunteer attorneys doing something more than speaking with clients and providing an additional follow-up service, such as drafting a letter to an opposing party or making a phone call to an opposing party, or maybe providing a pro se low-income client with assistance drafting a simple court form. Finally, VLN's full representation services typically involve a volunteer attorney representing a low-income client in a legal proceeding from start to finish. Who does VLN help? VLN assists low-income clients. Most of VLN's clients live in Hennepin County in the Minneapolis area. All of VLN's clients must either live in the state of Minnesota or have a legal issue, the venue of which is in the state of Minnesota. What level of services a client is eligible to receive through VLN depends on that client's level of household income. So in order to receive full representation services, where a volunteer attorney can represent a client from start to finish in a legal proceeding, a VLN client must have a household income at or below 125% of the federal poverty guidelines. This is the same level of income that the Minnesota state courts will look at at to determine eligibility for waiver of the court's filing fees. The numbers are relatively low. For example, a family of 4 must have an annual income at or below $32,750 to qualify for VLN's full representation services. However, for legal advice or brief services, VLN allows a higher income threshold to determine eligibility at or below 300% of the federal poverty guidelines. Clients must also have limited assets. Typically, most clients who qualify for VLN services would own assets such as one single home and a motor vehicle, or have bank accounts with limited funds. How many clients does VLN help? In 2018, approximately 700 volunteer attorneys provided nearly 9,000 services to VLN's clients. What areas of law does VLN help with? VLN helps with several areas of law. VLN helps with administrative law matters. These are typically cases that involve people who work in facilities licensed by the Minnesota Department of Human Services who have been disqualified from work due to things related to criminal charges or incidents that occur within the workplace. VLN assists with bankruptcy, including bankruptcy adversary proceedings. VLN assists with civil lawsuits and provides advice and brief services and representation to defendants in civil lawsuits, as well as judgment debtors regarding exemption claims in response to post-judgment collection action. VLN helps defendants in criminal proceedings to expunge criminal records. VLN assists with consumer law matters such as credit card debt litigation. Similarly, debtor-creditor law. VLN assists with employment law issues and has employment law telephone advice services. VLN assists with family law issues such as divorce and custody. VLN assists with a variety of housing law issues such as eviction, eviction records expungement, and rent escrow cases. VLN assists immigration law clients with matters such as applying for naturalized citizenship, asylum status, or LARIF applicants. VLN assists with juvenile law matters, advice only. VLN has a real estate law advice phone clinic. VLN has a conciliation court or a small claims court clinic that also assists with appeals to district court. And VLN also assists with unemployment compensation appeals, which we expect to be a high demand area as the economy worsens going forward. How is VLN operating during the COVID-19 pandemic? VLN's office and physical space remain closed to the public and volunteers for the duration of the pandemic. All of VLN staff are currently working remotely and will continue to provide services to low-income clients remotely during the pandemic. VLN has an intake line which potential clients can call to be screened for financial and issue eligibility. That telephone line remains open and will remain open, taking new calls for the duration of the pandemic. And VLN will continue to match low-income clients with volunteer attorneys to provide advice, brief services, and full representation services remotely for the duration of the pandemic. How have court closures impacted VLN's work? VLN has suspended all of its in-person legal advice clinics located at courthouses until further notice. VLN has converted many of these services to telephone advice services. VLN is exploring other ways to provide services remotely to our low-income clients. Unfortunately, many of our clients lack access to high-speed internet or other appropriate technologies needed to do things such as hold Zoom meetings with volunteer attorneys. Many hearings and many types of cases that VLN normally assists with are not currently being held or scheduled due to orders issued by the governor and the Chief Justice in response to the pandemic. This is a fluid and changing situation, so VLN encourages all of its volunteers to sign up for updates from the Minnesota Judicial Branch to get the latest information regarding how the courts are operating during the pandemic. What if I have no experience working with low-income clients? Even in normal times, many VLN clients have circumstances in their lives that may impact their ability to participate in the legal process, and some of these circumstances have been greatly exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. So VLN offers resources and periodic trainings for attorneys who do not have any prior experience working with low-income clients. Does VLN work with interpreters? Yes, VLN assists a number of clients who speak languages other than English or who have limited English language speaking and reading abilities. VLN does provide interpreters. Interpreters may be VLN staff members who speak a language other than English, or more likely, the interpreters may be through a paid telephone interpreting service that offers a large number of languages. VLN pays for these paid telephone interpreting services, which can cost as much or more than $1 per minute. Please let VLN know if you are fluent in another language, especially Spanish or Somali, as we have many clients who speak those languages as their first language. Do I need malpractice insurance to volunteer? No, you do not, because VLN provides malpractice insurance to its volunteer attorneys for their work on VLN pro bono cases. In order to be covered by VLN's malpractice insurance, we will need the volunteer attorney to submit an application, which can be done online through our website, vlnmn.org. VLN needs the application to be approved. As part of the approval process, we check with the Minnesota Board of Professional Responsibility to make sure attorneys do not have any disciplinary issues. After that, VLN needs to add the volunteer attorney to its database so that we are able to actually track your work. It is very important that volunteer attorneys keep VLN informed regarding any important updates to their case. It is also very important to VLN that attorneys complete a case closing form for full representation cases. On the case closing form, you will essentially be letting VLN know what the ultimate outcome was of the services you provided and the amount of time that you spent working on that case. Unless you complete a case closing form, which can also be done online through VLN's website, VLN is not able to report your services to certain grant funders. So it is crucial that you please keep VLN in the loop and complete a case closing form whenever you have agreed to provide full representation services to a client. Can I get CLE credit for volunteering? Yes, a lawyer who provides pro bono legal representation through VLN or other qualified legal services providers is eligible to claim CLE credits for pro bono work. You may claim one standard CLE credit for every 3 hours of pro bono work that you do, up to a maximum of 6.0 standard CLE credits. In order to claim those credits, you will need to download and complete an affidavit of pro bono representation and send it to the CLE board when you submit during your normal CLE reporting period. How can I help? There are a variety of ways you can help. One way you can help VLN's low-income clients is to sign up to take a shift providing legal advice over the telephone. VLN will schedule you to call clients, typically 2 to 4 people, at a particular day and a particular time. VLN staff will send you client files in advance, which will contain all of the information and documentation that VLN has in its possession regarding the legal issue. Clients are told to expect your call during a specific window of time. So, for example, if you signed up to talk to 4 people, we might say that these 4 individuals can expect a telephone call from the volunteer attorney sometime between the hours of noon to 2 p.m. on a specific day. Clients are typically not given your telephone numbers. There is no expectation of continuing or ongoing services for telephone advice shifts. Clients are clearly told that this is a one-time service and there is no continuing representation. If you are using your personal cell phone to call clients, you may wish to use star 67 or some equivalent service to mask your telephone number. VLN needs experienced attorneys who can provide advice in the following areas of law: debtor-creditor, employment law, and unemployment compensation denial appeals. You may also choose to provide the phone advice client with a brief follow-up service if you wish after speaking with the client. Please let VLN know if you have decided you want to take on any additional responsibility regarding the client, such as perhaps drafting a letter to an opposing party for the client or helping the client complete a simple court form. How do I get a telephone advice shift? Simply let VLN know. If you have expertise or experience in any one of these areas, please let VLN staff know, and we will let you know what days and times we are currently looking for volunteers to provide these services. Another way you can help is to actually take a full representation case. VLN is always looking for volunteer attorneys willing to represent clients from start to finish in several areas of law, including administrative law, bankruptcy, divorce, criminal expungements, immigration law, letters to creditors, unemployment compensation denial appeals, and several other areas of law. What support does VLN provide if I take a pro bono case? VLN has staff attorneys, which are referred to as resource attorneys, who provide support to volunteer attorneys who take pro bono cases. VLN's resource attorneys are subject matter experts, and they can help you by understanding how the law applies to the facts of your case and help you troubleshoot any issues that may arise. Resource attorneys routinely provide example pleadings and training specific to an area of law. VLN's resource attorneys are constantly planning CLEs, and we have an existing bank of materials that may be available to you depending on the area of law. In addition to having VLN staff resource attorneys, VLN also has volunteer mentor attorneys, some of whom have decades worth of experience in a particular area of law, who might also be able to partner with you and help you understand the basic issues in your case and troubleshoot any problem issues that may arise. What happens when I agree to take a pro bono case? So the first thing VLN is going to do is send you all of the information that you would need to run your normal conflict check with your firm. If the case passes a conflict check, VLN will then send you the client file for your review. The client file will contain all of the information and documentation that VLN has related to a matter. VLN staff are routinely working with clients on the front end to gather information such as documents filed with the court or documents that may have been sent to the client in the mail by the opposing party. So you should get everything you need at the front end of the case. VLN will then put you in touch with the client and inform the client that you have agreed to take the case. Typically, this means that VLN will give the client your phone number, and you will also be given all of the client's contact information. VLN will typically follow up with you to make sure that you have contacted the client and that the client is cooperating within a couple days of you agreeing to take the case. After you agree to take the case and have confirmed that you want to represent the client, VLN asks that you sign a VLN representation agreement. This agreement outlines your rights and responsibilities and the client's rights and responsibilities, and VLN requests that you send VLN a copy of this VLN representation agreement. It is also very important for funding purposes that VLN have a signed copy of this representation agreement on file. If VLN does not have a signed copy of the representation agreement on file, it will be unable to report this case to certain grant funders. So after you have signed the representation agreement, you represent the client with support from VLN as needed. You provide VLN with regular updates regarding the status of your case. If we do not hear from you, our staff will be contacting you to request updates periodically. And once your involvement with the case has ended, VLN requests that you complete a VLN case closing form. Again, that form can be completed online. And again, VLN must have a completed case closing form on file in order to report your services to certain grant funders. So please do not forget this crucial step. Not to belabor the point, but again, it is absolutely crucial that VLN have a copy of the VLN retainer agreement and the VLN case closing form on file in order to be able to report the outcome of the case and your work on the case to certain grant funders. And again, those forms are available online on VLN's website. Thank you so much for your interest in volunteering. VLN staff are very much looking forward to hearing from you and answering any questions you may have. Please feel free to reach out with any questions or comments directly to Glenn Drew, Program Director at Volunteer Lawyers Network, via telephone or email. And thanks again.